Because you're jumping back into the gap.
Hey coach, welcome to the Basketball Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Oliver. I appreciate you joining us for this week's podcast. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and visit basketballimmersion.com for more coaching resources and access to all the basketball podcasts. I hope you will give us a shout out on social media, on Twitter at @BBallImmersion, or on Instagram at @BasketballImmersion to help me continue to share the game. Enjoy the episode. Coach, it's awesome today to have Jamion Christian with us, who is entering his second year as head men's basketball coach at George Washington University. Coach Christian turned around Mount St. Mary's and Siena prior to coming over to George Washington. And awesome to have you on the podcast, Coach.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm so excited and I love the work that you do and the knowledge you share. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I told you when we had a chance to meet that I really enjoyed, first of all, I got to know you a little bit through your Twitter account. I think you do a really good job on social media presenting yourself and your program and the different things that you guys do. And that definitely led to me wanting to talk to you and have a podcast with you.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think we have all these different avenues now where people can get to know us and get to know our process. I think as you climb the ladder, I think you have a responsibility to share the knowledge that you have and to do it in a way that people can find it. Trying to use all the methods that we have to be able to do that. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, tremendous. And, leading into what we're going to talk about today, which is this leadership enhancement plan. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, one of the things that, through the years, we're trying to really figure out a way to really teach our leadership. And I think, in our programs, every year you try to find the leaders in your program, but I don't know if we always do a great job of helping them learn how to grow within your program and leadership. And so we call it enhancement plan because it really stands to build on itself. We want to get as many guys into our leadership plan as possible. We start teaching them when they're freshmen, when they open that door. And we just want to keep building on top of it, almost like a scaffolding, if you look at it that way. We just want to keep building on top of it. We're able to do that, have really, really good leaders and if they're not great leaders, they have a great understanding of the team dynamic and the importance of it. And so we want to really try to systemize our leadership ability here. And I'm looking forward to discussing it.
Well, and we're going to go through that progression and we're going to start with the team. But maybe even before we get there, where was the influences behind this and how long ago did you start this leadership enhancement plan?
The influences kind of start well before. One of the first guys I did for a guy named Bob Johnson, who was a tremendous professor at Emory and Henry College. And he actually taught a course on leadership each semester. And a lot of the stuff that he taught in that leadership class, he would then bring back to the office and we would have to review it. Guys that have worked at Emory and Henry, Nathan Davis, Jimmy Allen, John Kaufman, Mike Young, and myself. And then my brother is an assistant coach for the Wizards. So, he's had a tremendous impact on the game through us. And, we all kind of went through this leadership academy, I would say, with him every day. And so I think the influence has really started there. And he focused so much on his leadership with our team, really more so than the X's and O's, because he felt like if you could really build a person's awareness up and understanding, then you could really teach them the rest of the things. And that's how that program at Emory and Henry was built. And I think that's how each of us who are coaching now have kind of gone and done that. What I wanted to really do, honestly, Chris, was just I wanted to systemize it. I wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything. A lot of times as coaches, what I'm reading is what I'm teaching to our team. And I felt like that was a real weakness. What if what I'm reading or listening to at that time isn't what my team needs to hear? And so why not try to put together something where, you really think about what a freshman needs every single year, what a sophomore needs every single year, and just kind of build it that way. So that's how it all got going, was kind of a combination of the great leaders I've had a chance to work for and just trying to systemize it so I could do the system better for our team to allow those guys to be complete leaders at the end of the day.
Well, it's such a great point. Like a lot of us talk about developing leadership and developing character or culture, whatever it is. But really, you're putting it in a way that it's a progressive part of the program. It's not just a speech at the beginning of the year. You go through this whole program, this whole phase to it, and it's really structured and organized as a part of your coaching, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're actually structuring even more. We're taking this now. I'm going to turn this into a workbook, that I can give our guys at the beginning of their careers, and then they'll be able to have that through the remainder of their careers when they graduate. And, just being able to put this together in one place where the guys can work through it and have everything they've written from the time they're freshmen to seniors in one place and everything they've learned in one place, I think is going to be really key. One of the best parts about, trying to build leadership, if you're doing a good job of it, then your team starts to lead each other, and then they start teaching each other. And so the idea of a workbook really came up. Work with a guy named Brian Levinson. Let's put together a workbook and try to figure out a way to just put it all in one place for them to be able to teach one another and to be able to back to their own notes.
It's great. It's great. What a resource for players as they graduate as well and move on to careers in or outside of basketball, and tremendous for that. So, Coach, let's start with the team. Talk to me about this leadership enhancement plan and how you started with your team.
Yeah, one of the first things, everyone always asks, like, when you take over a job, what's one of the first things that you do? And, I think the first thing I do everywhere I've been is I've really jumped into this leadership enhancement plan and really try to put some of this stuff together and put it right in front of them because I feel like it's really important. Usually when you're taking over a team, it's a team that didn't have a lot of success the year before, or maybe underachieved in some way, or maybe had injuries or something, but you're there for a reason. And so what I want to always try to do is, number one, I want to make sure the guys understand gratitude. So when we got here to GW, one of the first things we did was we had the guys call 5 people that they were thankful for in their past, and I wanted them to take note of what people said back to them. What that felt like, how that felt to hear that information. I think that gratitude is so important. So the first thing we wanted to do is kind of build this notion of gratitude in. Just I think that's so important. What happens is people help us along the way. And we maybe give a thank you in the moment, but we never give a thank you in reflection. And I always feel like that thank you in reflection is so much more powerful. So we make sure we're just helping our guys understand that, and that they're not just moving on from one event to the next, but they're having a moment to reflect and look back. I think that's an important part because you want your team, when you're taking over there in that first year especially, you want them to be able to acknowledge the things that they did well and the things they could have done better. And I think that's really allowed us to have improvements in each of the 3 places we've been. Because teams have been able to be self-aware on things they could have done better. And then we really just try to start there and coach from them. And so, the definitions we kind of put out in front of them first. After the gratitude, that was the first thing we did the first week. The next thing we talk about is, what does it mean to be all in? We have them define all of these: all in, earn it, no excuses, honesty, love, present in the moment, resulting, grit, and accountability. And we have them, honestly, like write their definition of what that means to them. And then we post them in our locker room. And that's the language we've had to live by through the course of the year. It's been really good for us in the past. And, we're always trying to adapt with it, Chris, but it's been good for us because it's allowed us to kind of have a roadmap of how we want to operate. If we have a bad, if we play bad on a Saturday because we travel back late on a Thursday, hey, no excuses today. And we make sure they know that definition with no excuses. And talking about being honest. And Chris, I don't know if there's any more important quality in a locker room than true honesty with one another. And so we want them to really understand what honesty is, and we want to call them out when they're not being honest. One thing we say in our locker room is love is accountability and accountability is love. Everything starts with love and it ends with love. And so really having that as an understanding for everything we're trying to do, I think is really important. I'm not saying we got it perfected, but we're working really hard at it, and we spend a lot of time on it.
I love that you start with gratitude and then you go from there. And then with these definitions, give us an idea of how you deliver them to the team. Is this something that they're empowered to come up with the definition as a group, as individuals, or is it something you're defining for them? How are we presenting this to the team?
I'm about empowering them. So I ask a lot of open-ended questions. So I'll say, hey, I want you guys, how would you define all in? And I just leave it up to them. And I let them kind of use their language, their terminology, the things they want to use. The more free and loose they are with it, the better. A lot of times they'll come up with a shorter definition than what I could have, and I think that's better for it. Just trying to give them ownership within that locker room. I just think that's really important, and trying to show them the ways that they can do that. And we just leave it open ended for them really, and let them go and kind of attack it. And then we just try to hold them accountable to their words. And I think when it's their words, their meetings, and what's important to them, it's a lot easier to hold them accountable to it.
Well, that's great. And you give these words life, right? Like this is a conscious process on your part, coaching staff and the players' part, to use these words within your program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We want to use it at every given opportunity. And I always say we're kind of hunting and looking and searching for opportunities to use this in different ways that we can use it. And, again, it just gives it, like you talk about giving it life. I mean, you're giving it life in practice every day. We talk about love every single day because I feel like it's the strongest component there is in our world. And so if we can help them understand love and help them define love, and then, just constantly hold them accountable to it, it's just really powerful. And, over time, what I've found that when we've done this with our teams, when we get about a year and a half in, the guys really understand it. And then from there, it really takes off.
It's great stuff. And then the ongoing maintenance of this then for your team, what do you do? Is it reading material, video, movies, get-togethers? What are the types of things that you're doing for the ongoing maintenance of this?
Yeah, so with our team and attached to this document, we have reading materials, we have videos and movies, and a lot of these things. We've gathered them through the years, and I think what happens is, again, we're watching in the moment. A lot of times, we try to present to our team. And I just said, well, let's take the things that we know we love and we always want to present, and let's categorize them and put them in a place. And so, we'll do it in a different series. I mean, I say there's probably 10 or 15 different leadership seminars we do with our team a year. And so you have to have a lot of material to be able to do that. And this gives us a place where we have it all. So like there's things on here from videos and movies like Amy Cuddy's body language. She talks a ton about body language. She's one of the best in the world talking about body language. I want our guys to understand the importance of that. When they're walking around campus, when they're on the floor, and just their presence and what that means. And so that's a great video. It's a TED Talk that we can show them that they can understand it quickly. And then we have them write a short summary or talk about it in front of the team or even present or do a skit about it in front of the team. So we'll use a combination of videos and books and, like the Steve Nash touch video, which is probably scary about now because of Corona, but it's one of the best videos because it shows how much he connected with his team and how much his connection allowed his guys to get their very best. And so just try to lean on those different videos and different things like that through the course of it to present to them, to kind of show them what it's like to be on a great team and the characteristics we need to have.
Hey, Coach, just a brief interruption of the podcast to hear from one of our supporters. There is no shortage of action going on with our partners over at betonline.ag. The sports world is slow making its way back with the NBA announcing its return in late July, but right now UFC, boxing, NASCAR, and international soccer have all resumed play, and BetOnline has the best odds, lines for their upcoming games and matches. Need more? BetOnline has simulated NFL, NBA, and UFC happening live every day for our devout gamblers to check out. BetOnline also offers hundreds of live casino games, poker tournaments, and the best props in the business. Visit betonline.ag on your computer or mobile device and join now to receive your welcome bonus. betonline.ag, your online wagering experts. Now back to the podcast. One of the books you referenced, Good to Great, by Jim Collins. Can you talk about the hedgehog concept for those that haven't heard of that?
What happens is, I'll tell you, Chris, what I struggle with is I'm a big believer in letting the guys go into the off season and letting them expand their games to the highest level, which kind of goes against the hedgehog concept a little bit. But I think is in the off season, that's your time. You're going to work, you're going to improve, you're going to stretch yourself. I want you to do that. When we get to our season, where we're all together, we're going with this hedgehog concept. Well, really what you do best, we're trying to get you to do. And we literally have this document that we create and that we give to the guys. And we want to take the three things you do at your very best and at your highest level. And we want you doing those things, 100% of the time. And we're really focusing on that. And the hedgehog concept is something that we use to really just to help the guys understand their roles within the team. And I don't believe like a role is defined by what you can't do as much as it's defined by what you can do. And so if you really look at anyone on your team, anyone that we've coached, they probably do 3 to 5 things really well and probably 1 or 2 things poorly. So we just want to use this hedgehog concept to just talk to them so much about if you can do these 3 or 4 things at the highest level all the time and stay consistently there, look at the production you're going to be able to have. And we're going to keep working on your weaknesses. And that's why I think the offseason is important to let guys have imagination and growth and they can feel that, because you never know. A guy may be at a certain place as a freshman. As a senior, he might be able to do a couple of things that he worked on a little bit and be able to really improve. And so I want to keep those guys, I want their imaginations going and running wild. And then I just want them being mature enough to be able to lock in and be really singular focused on the hedgehog concept. And for example, we're going to take 33s as a team when we're doing our practice reps, and we do like everyone, we're charting every 3-point shot, take in where it's taken from. We do all that. If you're not making, 65% of your threes in practice on the catch and shoot, and we say usually you drop about 30%, right, when you get into the game. So if you're not making 65%, then you don't essentially have a 3-point license, right? You can only take certain ones, maybe at the end of the clock. But if we can get 3 or 4 of our best 3-point shooters on our team above 65%, taking just about 100% of our threes, we're going to have a high 3-point percentage as a team. And so that's really important. And so really identifying to everyone what they can do at the elite level over and over and over again and empowering them to go and attack that, I think is really important. And so that's how we use that hedgehog concept. It's really something that we've used. We use it over and over and over again in a lot of different ways. And we've really tried to build our programs on that.
Yeah, it's such a cool thing, and I love how you framed it there. The other part that comes clear as I kind of read through the document that you provided me is that there's so many opportunities for young men in your case to be able to present themselves, to be able to talk in front of people, and to be uncomfortable in a lot of situations. And maybe you can talk to some of those situations. For example, I think tell the truth exercise is one of those, right?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is, vulnerability. One of the books that's on there that we usually read as a team when we first get everybody together, but it really starts more as a sophomore book, is The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And the five dysfunctions of a team really talks about the absence of trust as like the first dysfunction. And so that's really important. And you can't have trust unless you have great vulnerability. And so, the first couple of activities, honestly, Chris, we just kind of want to get the guys moving. And, it's not like, you go to these one-day events, these one-day conferences, and you kind of do like a quick icebreaker and you kind of move on from it. And the difference on a team is I feel like you're not going to get to vulnerability quickly. And so we really try to build this trust up with different ways. And then once we're able to get into this vulnerability stage and we talk about tell the truth and you're in front of the group and you're going to tell someone exactly what you feel about them, how you think about them. And I think that's really important. And, and letting guys kind of take that. And, I think it's a great muscle is learning how to take and accept criticism. And so we want to provide a space and an environment where a guy can take that kind of criticism in, listen and learn from it. And then we want to say, all right, now tell your team how you feel about it and let them explain it out. I think that's really important to just learn how to take criticism from your teammate. And a lot of these guys, a lot of us haven't had to take criticism before. And so usually you get criticized by your coach. You don't have a chance to say anything back. You kind of stay with it in that moment, and then you kind of carry it with you through the rest of practice. We really want to practice with our guys and work with our guys on taking it in the moment, listening to the message, and then giving out great energy to go and attack what was just said or responding to it in the right way. And so just trying to build up these different kind of programs and different kind of environmental things that we can do to allow the guys to grow up. And what's great about it, Chris, really is that when these guys get through, and I said like a year and a half into it, you just see a huge jump with all the guys in their ability to communicate tough stuff, their ability to communicate what they're appreciative of, what they're disappointed of. And I think it just makes our team so much stronger because our communication with one another is just so much better.
Well, and the great part about how you have it set up is that, from freshman to senior, you're developing, you're improving, you're enhancing, and then you can help the people behind you understand and progress better too, right?
Right. And that's what's great about it. So like when you're a freshman, like we'll use this as an example. As a freshman, the first book you're going to read is The Energy Bus. And I feel like the energy bus is so important because it talks about the power of your energy. When you think about the power of your energy, the energy you bring to the space is the most important resource that you bring into that space every day. And your energy is contagious from others. And so the first thing is learning that your energy and what it does to the person beside you. We had a team one year, Chris, we had a lot of talent on our team, really good team, really talented team. And we underachieved because we weren't responsible for our energy. And we allowed our energy to be wasted on things that they shouldn't have been wasted on. And I always said, we're not going to do that again. We're going to make sure we're responsible for our energy. And so a freshman comes in, they read the energy bus. And so what happens is they read the energy bus and they're kind of working through with the coach and staff. And at the end of that activity, they get a chance to teach that to the team. Now, what's neat about it is if you're a sophomore, a junior, and a senior, you've already heard the energy bus enough. So you're going to be really critical of what they're teaching. And you're going to really, attack the freshmen in that area, which is really important, for them to learn the intentionality of their word and how important it is to teach and to live by your word. And then to have guys there as like sort of like a refresher, right? And so everyone's teaching one another and trying to build this cycle in where now the freshmen are teaching it for the first time for them as they're learning it, but the other guys will hold them accountable to what they're seeing in those moments. We want to try to find ways to build that in and build that level of accountability over and over again within our program. And that's like a great example of how we're able to do that.
Yeah, no, it's tremendous. And talk maybe a little bit more just about the freshmen and kind of the process that they go through in this first part.
Yeah, I think for freshmen, it's all about like behavioral training, and I think I say that because they're coming from a different environment where maybe they've been held accountable before, maybe they haven't. And we talk about being held accountable. We're talking about how they speak to one another, how they look, how they walk into the building, how they go to class, where they sit at in class. Like there are all these things that you really have to teach freshmen. And so we just try to be really intentional with how we're teaching them and helping them understand. Like ideally what you want at some point when you're on these campuses or coaching is for people to to see your guys walking around and say, oh, I can tell by the way he's walking around. I can tell by the way he's engaging with other people. That's a basketball guy. You can tell that by the way the person's behaviors are. And I think that's important to be able to do. And so we want to just start trying to teach these guys the right kind of behaviors and really get them into the accountability stuff. So I think as a freshman, we're really nitpicking a lot of things to try to get them in the right place. And for me, like having a guy walk straight with his shoulders back and his chin up, right? That shows confidence, exudes confidence. So we've got to really hold these guys accountable to that. That's going to lead to the floor. When you watch Amy Cuddy's video about body language, that's one of the biggest things she talks about is like your posture and how important it is for what other people are seeing from you. And so we're going to watch the video. We're going to do that part of it. And then we're going to then go and hold them accountable to that. Once we teach you a skill, we're going to hold you accountable to that. And, those are little examples of things that we're talking about with freshmen being behavioral training and, how you talk to your professors, how you work with them and how you respond to them, how you email. Those are all the questions that you got to help a freshman answer. And you can't assume that they're just going to know it. We wouldn't assume that they knew anything on the basketball floor, but then we often assume they know a lot of stuff off the floor. And I think that's unfair. And so we just want to do a great job of trying to teach them all those little things off the floor and just trying to hold them accountable to it.
So who's delivering this information to them? Is that you, or do you bring in different experts in the certain fields? Who's doing this?
Yeah, we kind of mix it up depending on the year. And, what's great about it is like we've done it a couple of different ways depending on the team. We want to build trust with our staff, then we've got to have our staff involved in this, right? And so, early on, we're going to use a lot of different guys on staff. Maybe we'll have the staff members teach a chapter in a book. Maybe we'll have them teach a certain lesson in it. whatever it is, we kind of mix it up. And I think it gives us the flexibility and the freedom to be able to do that. One of the things I have on my staff, I've always had at least one teacher on my staff. Someone that's taught at some point in a school system. So I love having that because I feel like they step back into that classroom model with teaching and they're just so good at it. They're so much better than us coaches at delivering the message because they've been in that classroom setting before, and their idea and how they want to engage everyone is so different. I think that's really important. If you're trying to build trust, we can't build trust if I'm the only person speaking, right? We're not going to build trust that way. We have to show that we have expertise in other matters that will help our guys and ultimately that we love our guys. So we have to be able to position our assistant coaches in front of them and allow them to be able to deliver that kind of message. Now we can also bring people in. We've done that to talk about different things, and that's worked really well. And I think when you get to year 3 or 4, it's a little bit easier to bring some people in. I think year 1 and 2, you're trying to build that trust, and so that when that guy has a problem in your locker room or something that happens in the classroom, that he comes in here, he knocks on one of your assistant's doors or knocks on your doors, and he feels comfortable to be able to talk to you about it. And I think when you're spending a lot of time talking about things that are not basketball driven, you start to build that into your program. And when you get that, you got a chance to really be really special, because the basketball stuff we love, we want to make our relationship with you not just about basketball, but about your life and improving your life. And when we get to that level, honestly, we're really hard to beat on the floor, and our guys are doing exceptional off the floor.
I'm curious then, with freshmen, do they have less freedom, so to speak, than, say, seniors? And do you progressively earn that within your program? Or how do you approach that in terms of this? Is it a little stricter early for freshmen?
Yeah, we're pretty strict with these guys early on. And we can do that depending on which assistant coaches we put them with. I'm big on guys having freedom. So I don't want to restrict a guy, but I'm also big on you got to learn your lesson. So if you make a mistake, then we're going to hold you accountable for the mistake you've made. So we've kind of done we've done a combination of both. What I think is better is starting more strict early and then letting it go as you go along. Like, let's say you get a 2.8, you're out of study hall. If you're 2.930, then you can grow your hair how you want to. I think finding different ways to give guys freedoms and almost like making it like a game for them on what, they get to the next level. Oh, then I get this kind of freedom. I think that's really important. And I think it allows for everyone to keep working. I think a lot of times in teams that I played on, there would be like, there's a different set of rules for this guy and a different set of rules for that guy. And I think you need some of that because people are different, but there's fundamental things that you have to really stand for. And I think in those areas where you stand for, but you feel like you do need to give a little bit of give, I think making it a level where, hey, level 4 is this. You get to be like this. You can do what you want there, blah, blah, blah. I think that's really valuable. And I think it gives them something to work for on a day-to-day basis. And, if you're a guy and you want to grow your hair out, you want to get, you need a 2.9 to do that. And you're sitting at a 2.7, 2.8, you're going to really make sure you lock in on your exams to be able to do that. And just, it's another incentive that I think is really valuable that allows the guys to grow.
And this parallels to the basketball court too, right? Where certainly early on, freshmen will have less freedom and they earn it through obviously building trust and all these different things and learning and applying what you're teaching them.
Absolutely. And I think that's just so important. Like, I think one of the best things Coach Johnson talked about at Emory was you want to be disciplined enough that the guys understand the importance of discipline, but you don't want to be you don't want to go too far where the guys don't feel like they can make it back up. And he always felt like forgiveness was the biggest way you show your love. And so we want to embrace mistakes, and then we want to be able to recover from those mistakes. And then we want to be able to tell the story to them and to others about how they overcame the mistake, whatever it is, because they're going to make some mistakes. And I think when you're able to really forgive and appreciate that dynamic within your team, I think is really important. That, like, you'll hear me say after games, that game's on me. That was a bad game plan. That's on me. I've got to be better, whatever it is. I'm going to take great ownership. I think that helps our team take great ownership over things, And so we're always constantly trying to hold them accountable to their level of ownership. And just being able to be vulnerable within the group, starting with me and all the way down.
Good stuff. And talk to me then about rules. Do you have rules within your program?
Yeah, we really don't. We have more offensive rules
Yeah.
than we do off. My biggest thing is, like, don't be an abuser of love, right? And I think when you look in, that's the big thing. Like, don't abuse love. And I think when you look at that, I kind of go over this thing with our team about it. It's like if you, like a lot of times guys will have, they have a girlfriend that they like, but they don't love her. She loves them way more than they love them, right? And so they're going to use this person to gain shoes, gear, stuff like that. Like, don't be an abuser of love. I don't know if there's anything worse in life than someone that abuses love, right? And so my love for you is, hey, you have your cell phone when we're on the road. Some coaches collect them. I don't collect your cell phones. I trust you. I believe in you. Don't abuse my love by being on the phone till 4 a.m. Like, don't abuse it. And then just because you're a guy who starts and now you're saying, oh, well, now coach, you got to make a decision. Don't be that guy that abuses love, right? And so I spent a lot of time talking about that notion of love and abuse of love, and how that nothing breaks trust faster than the abuse of love. And so we talk about that a good bit. I try to recruit guys that are really accountable in themselves, that are really driven in what they want to be able to do. So I try not to have a ton of rules. I think rules can kind of bind you in there, but don't abuse love. Do what's asked of you and be on time. If we had rules, it'd be that simple. And most of the time, the guys can live up to those things.
Yeah, I love it. And you connected this a little bit to recruiting. I assume this is part of your recruiting pitch. Is this leadership enhancement plan is obviously a valuable part that you're sharing with potential recruits.
Well, we want people that want to lead. We want to change the world here. What we're trying to do here at GW is trying to do something that's never been done. That's our mission, trying to do something that's never been done. And we've got to find people that have that level of enthusiasm, that level of humility, and that level of talent that want to do that. And that's, those are 3 different buckets. Some people try to put them all together. No, there's 3 different buckets. And you need to have great balance in all those buckets to achieve that. So we're really looking a ton on guys that, if you want to lead, you want to learn how to lead, if you want to be a coach, if you want to be a leader in business, whatever it is, this is a great place for you. And we're trying to teach you all these things along the way. Like, a lot of these books and some of the things these guys are going to read and the people they're going to meet are going to help them way more after basketball than they will when they're here playing basketball for us. And I think we can get that focus to them off of the basketball and the hoop and onto their life, we're going to be in a great place. And that's just what we're striving to do. And so we're looking for guys, hunting for guys that want that. My assistants get mad at me all the time, Chris, because we'll recruit a guy for a year and we'll get to the end and I'll be like, I just don't think he's a good fit for us. And they'll be like, well, why? He can make shots, he can do this. It's like, he just doesn't take ownership. They lost 5 games in a row. When you talk to him about it, he doesn't take ownership. Man, if you're the best player on a high school team, like you're the best player on the team, you got to take great ownership. And what I found out in time is that, if we bring a guy in who didn't take ownership in high school, then it's really hard to get him to take ownership in college and help him understand that. When he's going to come in as a freshman, be behind some guys, have to work his way up. You start adding all the components in that it takes a freshman to get on the floor and to play and be meaningful. Man, usually those guys have great ownership. And, the first to maturity, Chris, is always the best. And so we're trying to find those who have a high level of maturity. Usually those that want to lead and have a strong sense of leadership and want to change the world. They're great fits for our program, and we're looking for a ton of those guys. And almost always, Chris, those guys overachieve in college. Almost always. And there's a lot of those guys on championship level teams that maybe some people pass up, because maybe they don't think they jump as high or whatever. We've taken those guys. We've had a lot of success with those guys because they're great inside your locker room. They're great outside your locker room. And they're always constantly building people up. And they're always getting better. And you're going to be good if you have a locker room of guys like that.
Hey, Coach, just a brief interruption to the podcast to hear from one of our supporters. There is no shortage of action going on with our partners over at betonline.ag. The sports world is slow making its way back with the NBA announcing its return in late July. But right now, UFC, boxing, NASCAR, and international soccer have all resumed play, and BetOnline has the best odds, lines for their upcoming games and matches. Need more? BetOnline has simulated NFL, NBA, and UFC happening live every day for our devout gamblers to check out. BetOnline also offers hundreds of live casino games, poker tournaments, and the best props in the business. Visit betonline.ag on your computer or mobile device and join now to receive your welcome bonus. BetOnline.ag, your online wagering experts. Now back to the podcast. That's great. I love that you gave us a practical example, because sometimes we talk about it, but then, we don't explain what are some of the things that we actually look for. And that accountability after losses is such an important part. Talk to us maybe about this progression from freshman to sophomore. What are some of the biggest changes that you would expect? And then what is the process for the sophomores that you're trying to enhance?
Yeah, something that happens as a sophomore is like, it's the first time that you're going to have recruits coming in behind you. So it's really the first time that you're thinking like, oh man, like they're over recruiting over me, which is a thing, but it isn't a thing, right? Like every coach wants the guys within their program to keep getting better, because we know that if we keep bringing in guys, we bring in a good freshman class, but that sophomore class keeps getting better over top of that class, we're going to have a great team. So I think that's the first time that notion kind of gets into their head. As a freshman, you're just so enthusiastic and happy to be here. As a sophomore, you recognize that, man, there's potential threats coming in every single year behind me. And so we're trying to build this notion in that, like, we're all here for a reason. We're all here for a purpose. And so, we give them like some simple clues, like some simple things we want to talk about, like do what needs to be done, right? Take a stand for what should be done and lead by example. So again, we're trying to grow their leadership. And as a freshman, it was about your enthusiasm and your energy and you having to bring that. Well, now as a sophomore, you should already have that. You've now done that for 365 days. That should be more than enough to be a habit. Now it's about, what needs to be done, doing it at the highest level, right? It's about leading by example, because now you have other people watching you. And then it's like standing up for what should be done. There's so many moments that happen in the locker room or happen on Friday night when we're not there, that now as a freshman, you might have been able to kind of turn left and go, well, he's a freshman, he's trying to figure it out. Well, now you're a sophomore and you have a responsibility to those behind you to make sure you're turning the right direction, that you're trying to hold them accountable. Now, those freshmen might still decide to turn the other way, but you try to lead by example. I think that's really important. So we want to move their lens. We don't want to sharpen their lens. We want to open their lens a little bit every single year that they're in our program. And so once they're able to do that and they're able to say, man, as a freshman, I was I've already had some great conversations with our rising sophomores now, because they're saying, man, like I just didn't sleep enough. And I'd say, well, did we tell you to get some sleep? Did we talk to you about this? We did. Yeah, I don't know why, coach. I just didn't get it. But now I understand. And we want that kind of dialogue. And so now my response in that moment is to say, well, now, all right, so what are you going to do to the freshmen when they come in here? Well, I'm going to tell them, coach, you got to get some sleep. Now, what if they're out on a Wednesday night really late? What are you going to tell them on Thursday? Well, coach, I'm going to tell them they need to get to bed, right? Like, so if we can build that into our program just through conversation and through practical accountability, we're going to be pretty good, because there's so many moments where I'm not going to be there, and they've got to know how to hold each other accountable. But I think we're responsible for teaching them how to help hold other people accountable. I don't think it's something that comes naturally for most people.
Great stuff and easy to understand. And maybe, again, we tend to treat a team sometimes too much as one entity, whereas there are these different parts, as you talked about, with freshman to sophomore, et cetera. But can you talk maybe more specifically with the sophomores? What are some of the specific things that you're doing to help them through this process?
Well, we talked about that book, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So we're going to really dive into that with them to help them understand. I think that just gives you such a great lens for understanding like the team dynamic. And I think as a freshman, very few guys come in as a freshman with a great understanding of a full team dynamic. So we want to make sure that we're diving into that. And, just a couple things are in that. And that's a Patrick Lencioni book, which is excellent. Absence of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and attention to results. Right. And then as you go through that book, it really gives you a great detailed outline of like why teams fail. And again, I don't think as a freshman, it's enough to help to tell a guy like he's got to kind of touch the stove a little bit to figure it out. But I think as a sophomore, you're just starting to figure it out. And so helping them kind of working through that book and really hold them accountable to the notions within that book, I think are really important. So we really dive into that with them pretty good. And the good thing is usually you have juniors and seniors who've gone through that, so they understand it a good bit. You know, the videos we'll like to watch, like we have like the Brady Six, which I think is a great video, right? And it's on YouTube. You can see it anywhere. It's an NFL video. It's excellent because it talks about how hard Tom Brady works. You know, it talks about Tom and the guys that get drafted before him, but it also talks about like how he outworked these guys in Michigan and how it wasn't easy. Because you could have some sophomores in there that haven't played yet, right? So they're now looking up saying, man, I'm never going to play. They brought a freshman in my position. There's a center in my position. We have to give them a larger roadmap where they can see their avenue of being able to play and be able to help a team. And so like Brady Six, Kobe Bryant use, and understanding growth mindset are three videos that we use with them throughout the course of the year that I think are really important. And again, with Brady Six and Kobe Bryant, you're talking about a guy who works so hard and they're both so diligent in what they're doing. And having growth mindset is ability to learn from your mistakes and the importance of that, right? And not believing that I was born one way, which is a fixed mindset, but I have a growth mindset, so I can improve myself. We just want to keep building these things in there for our sophomore guys as they're improving. And if we can do that, they can take the failures they had as a freshman or early in their sophomore year, and they can turn them into big time positives, and then turn that corner and really finish out with great careers.
It's great stuff. And maybe talk to us about juniors then, because at this point, they're obviously comfortable. They bought into this leadership enhancement plan. And how are we challenging them at that point to be able to grow even more?
But junior year is always interesting. And, you know, what's interesting is they're into this leadership stuff, so they understand it, they know it. It's really the first time with a junior class, I feel like let's say you have 4 guys in your junior class. If 2 guys have played a ton and 2 guys haven't, you're going to have a split in that junior class where you're not 2 guys are saying, hey, I might be a professional some way. I can go and do this. You're going to have 2 other guys looking and saying, man, maybe I should go and do something else. Right. So you got to really like that junior class is important. I always feel like that's like the lost class, right? Because that's when that fixed mindset can really dig in. That's why we're working on growth mindset as a sophomore, and just want to keep them just trying to get better and trying to improve. Because again, for the first time, they're looking out the door instead of just trying to get to the door. And so we want to do a great job with them. I mean, most places around the country, when they're juniors, they do internships. This is the year they start doing stuff like that. They start going to career fairs. So I think that's really important time to really lock in on them. And so we talk about competitive greatness, which is a great John Wooden quote. And we talk about accountability. We kind of refresh his accountability. We talk being unselfish, and we want to really focus on giving. Because I really believe this. If I can get my juniors and, you know, seniors and juniors, but I can get my juniors to kind of reinvest in the guys below them, we're going to be in a great spot, because that shows they're not afraid to help others. And I just feel like anytime your program is giving, it's just enhancing everyone. And now there's this great vibe within your program where it's like, man, like, you know, this guy really cares about me. You know, now if some of these guys, that junior's been there with him for 2 years, if he puts that kind of info into them every single day, they really feel connected and loved and appreciated. You know, we talk about learning from the past and excelling towards the future. Man, look, when you're a junior, you now have, you know, 68 to 74 games or so in there that you've played. You have, you know, over 300 practices. So, man, you've got a lot of information there that if we can take that and embrace it, we're going to be in a great spot. And so, again, it's about learning from the past, excelling towards my future, and holding them accountable to what they wanted at the beginning of the journey. Unselfish in everything you do. Do what's best for the team. It's huge. Like, really simple. Like, there's going to come a freshman. There's going to be a freshman or sophomore that's going to be really talented, and that can probably help your team if you're recruiting well. But if that junior understands your system better, understands what you need better, they're going to really have the ability to help your team out. So making sure they're being unselfish in everything that they're doing, and they're not trying to, you know, hey, I got to one up this guy. Like, be competitive greatness, go after it, but be unselfish and help. And you can do both things really well. And then I'll compete in everything that I do, and the band and my brothers do the same. I think that's huge. And they've been so far, but they have so much more to give. And so really helping them understand their journey, where they are within it, and how they can make our program better and continue to make themselves better, I think is really important. Those are some of the things we really try to focus on with that junior class.
Do you find at this point, regardless of role on the team, that they're more vocal because they're more confident by the things that you taught them and brought them along this enhancement plan?
Yeah, there's so much speaking involved in our program. usually as sophomores, their vocal is so much better. Usually as sophomores, when they're speaking, they would be like a senior in someone else's program, the sophomores. Because they have the understanding, they have the vocabulary, they have the language, they know what right and wrong is. And so by the time they get to a junior year, it's like almost like another layer, that they're now when they get to a junior year, quite honestly, Chris, they're able to apply some of the stuff they're learning in the classroom to some of the stuff that we're talking about. And they usually have a great collection of that. And that's the first time that I really see that they do it as seniors, but the first time they do it as juniors is that that's when they really start to bring things into us. Hey, coach, have you seen this? We read this article in class. We did this. I saw this. And they really start bringing that stuff to the table. And so the conversation with the coaching staff and it's in that junior year really, and sometimes you get a guy as a sophomore or freshman that's really high level that's ready to do that. But that collective whole of juniors is really special because, again, it's the first time that they're kind of looking outward a little bit and they're learning how to take what the world is giving them, the world is showing them, and they're learning how to apply it within our team. And I think that's really powerful because, again, the team, they're speaking the team's language. Now, I'm teaching the team and trying to cultivate an environment that allows for that kind of personality to flourish. But they're coming into the team, sharing with the team things that are pertinent to the team, things that the team is probably talking about in their group chats, whatever. And I think that's when it really gets rolling. It becomes a great dynamic.
This is impressive, I think, for you, from me looking at it from the outside, because in a way, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make yourself somewhat obsolete as the coach.
Yes.
It's counterintuitive for a lot of coaches to think that way, but that is ultimately the goal, to create independent performers, but also independent people.
Yeah. And I think when I've struggled and my teams have struggled is when I haven't been able to have enough time to get our team to do that. Because I think it takes time. And I think when you dive into it that way, and then you're able to take a step back, and it's amazing to watch, Chris, these guys working together. And you'll come to practice, and we're going through something, and something will happen, and guys will raise their hand and just ask a question. And people are like, "Man, your team asks a lot of questions." And I'm like, "That's great. That's exactly what we want. We want them to ask a ton of questions in practice. And we want them to get in the game. We want to go, all of us be 100% going in one direction and go and attack it. And we're trying to build that into everything that we're doing."
No, that's great. Anything else in terms of some of the practical things from being a junior that you want to highlight?
Yeah, we always watch the Do Your Job video. That's a really good one. That really talks about Patriots, and anytime you talk about the Patriots, kind of split the country in two. But they just have some really good stuff, and it just talks about what's neat about the Do Your Job videos. It talks about the coaching staff and how they're teaching the guys in the Patriots. And that there's one moment in time where something you worked on in the preseason might be necessary. And I think for juniors, that's important because now they have so much information ahead of them. And there might be something that happened when they were a freshman that we might have worked on and it presents itself as a junior. I want them to say, "Coach, what do you think about doing this? Remember we did this as a freshman?" Or, we do this a lot of times in practice, honestly. We we'll do a situation in the game and we'll be playing in practice, whatever. And I'll say, "All right, you guys got the huddle." And I'll let my point guard or my center draw the play up that they want to run. I want to build that into our program. And a lot of times the maze, they'll run something that you ran a year ago, or they'll run something that they ran in high school. And it's amazing how much it works, and how much ownership the guys have in that huddle when you give one of the players the board. And so, we're just trying to build that kind of ownership with them. And again, it doesn't matter where you got your knowledge from or when you got it. Let's really work together and apply it at the best moment.
Really cool, really cool. And let's finish the cycle and let's talk about senior. What's happening when they become a senior?
Well, senior year is all about legacy, and you always say this, everyone's always better when you have a senior-related team. But I think that's a couple things. Number one, we think it's because of experience of play and all that, which I think is important. But I think really it's the only time that you have a group of guys that have the same focus that you do as a coach. As a coach, those guys want to win that year, and as a coach, you want to win that year. And they have a driving force as seniors to win because it's their last one. But I think when you're a junior, sophomore, and freshman, there's a natural ability to say, "Well, I have next year, I have another opportunity." And then when you get to that senior year, it's just that driving force between those guys and the coaching staff that really pushes it forward. And so we talk a lot about that and just the legacy of it. And and when we talk about legacy, I think most people talk about legacy, like what record you're going to leave, how far we're going to make it, what tournament we're going to get to. We're talking about the legacy you leave with people, right? And so we've done all this build up through that course of time of, your energy, your accountability, we've done all these things. Well, what legacy are you leaving with the people in this locker room? When this person graduates, when this person gives their Hall of Fame speech, are they going to say, this senior taught me how to do this? That's where you want your legacy to be. Your legacy lives on with people. No matter how many games you win, there's going to be another team that's going to break that. And it doesn't matter. If you go to the Sweet 16, there's going to be some team at some point is going to pass that. So I don't want to make your legacy about that. Your legacy should be what lives on with people. And when you leave a legacy within someone, that lives on forever. Because now they take that, what you taught them, and they give it to someone else. And that person gives it to 5 more people, and that person gives it to 5 people. And your legacy doesn't end. So when we talk about legacy, we're talking more about what you're doing for people. We talk about impact, and we define impact as influence, maintaining productive ongoing relationship, participating daily. You think about seniors, you could have a 22-year-old senior and a 17-year-old freshman. That's a 5-year age gap, right? Their impact, right? They're participating daily with that freshman is going to be really important for your team, right? And naturally, those two groups will not connect together. They've been there, they're established in the university. So we want them to participate daily with our younger guys, whatever it is, whether it's taking them to lunch or laughing and joking with them or whatever it is, we want them to participate daily. A is assisting their goals and our goals. And you have a freshman, hey, knowing what he wants to do and helping them understand how he helps our team. C, connect on something other than our program. And so, hey, like if this guy loves, whatever it is, if this guy loves NASCAR, then, trying to connect with him on NASCAR. If this guy loves playing video games, connecting with him on that. But connect with something that he's going to be able to tie your legacy in with him beyond just what you did for him on the floor. And then T, teach more than basketball. And again, when you bring a guy into the locker room and he's got so much experience as a senior and you've got a freshman or a sophomore, they have a guy that they can kind of look up to and talk to and ask questions to. And, that teach more than basketball, I think, becomes really important. And that's when you really tie into a complete team. So we talk about legacy, impact, and we talk about appreciation. Now you've gone through this journey. You've seen the best and the worst of your university. You've seen the best and the worst of your team, the best and worst of your league. Man, how appreciative are you? And so when you get your senior speech, are you going to be out there talking about how many people helped you along the way? Are you going to show them great appreciation? Those things are all really important for us. And, those are distinctions for the seniors. And again, legacy, impact, and appreciation. You just really try to dive in deeply with them.
I love that. I love how you phrase it with impact there. And so give us maybe a better visual then of what this looks like in terms of a mentorship model from a senior to a freshman. Is that something that you organize at first, or is it something that they self-organize in terms of seeing someone's needs, or is it got to be a little bit of a push on your part to be able to create these different mentorship opportunities?
I feel like it's best when it comes naturally. And so, there was one year, Chris, we kind of gave them big brothers and we did that. We partnered them up and, I thought it worked okay, but I think it limited the guys a little bit. I want them to learn. I want to see this notion within the locker room, and I want to give them the environment where you feel connected and can talk and communicate. And there's different ways we can connect the guys up. If we see two guys aren't connecting, we can have them shoot at the same basket all the time together, or have them go to lunch with a coaching staff member. Or, as a coach, I'm spending a ton of time meeting with the guys individually. So if I see there's a senior that's not connecting with someone, I can bring them in and just talk to them about it and just try to get some ideas of why they're not and try to figure that out. But, I think sometimes when you try to micromanage it, sometimes I think you lose some fluidity in it. And I think it's important for the guys to kind of figure it out for themselves and to know where to go to for the right answers. But then as an observer, and I think this is what's really important, when I can be an observer, I can look at the dynamics on the team and I can see what's going on and what isn't going on. And then I can try to communicate and talk and try to get the guys to kind of move in the direction that I think will help our team be at its best. And I would say if I'm critical of something, that's when I'm critical. I would say I don't understand why you're not talking to this person. And that's how it would be in a one-on-one meeting, and I'd want you to answer because now as a senior, that's a major principle for me. But again, once we get these guys in kind of to that point as seniors, usually honestly, they're pretty good with it. We haven't had someone be in our program through the cycle and not be really good at it, quite honestly. I mean, by then, the guys are really, really good at it.
So tremendous stuff. And coaches listening, they're thinking about this and they're thinking about creating something like this. What are some of the biggest challenges in putting this together and, again, taking players through these different stages?
Well, I think number one, you got to know who you are and you got to know what's important to you, because anything that you put out there that isn't genuine to you, the guys are going to know, and they're going to attack you where you're weakest at. So you got to know who you are. I think you've got to study. I think to know who you are, to know where you want to go, I think you got to really study it and try to figure out, like all these books on here, I've had a chance to read. I've had a chance to read a few times. I might have gone to courses to learn more about them. I think you got to study it. Like I'm not studying a whole lot of basketball right now. I'm not studying a ton of that. I'm really studying a ton of leadership stuff and trying to figure out how I can lead better, because there's going to be situations that are going to be presented with our team in terms of being a leader to them that I maybe haven't gone through before. So I need to be able to lean on other people's experiences to learn or know what to do or to think about it differently. As leaders, oftentimes our job is to be able to answer the problems that are not problems today, they're problems tomorrow. So we have to try to stay out ahead of it constantly. So we're just trying to do that over and over again. I think it takes time. I think it's one of the best things I've honestly, it's one of the most rewarding, one of the best things I've ever done. I love every year coming back and revamping it and trying to see how we can do it better, because I feel like this just gives us such a blueprint, and when we get this workbook going together, I'm like so excited because we'll have it all and we'll be able to really pull at certain parts of the year. We're going to pull right to this page here and go on and attack it. And I just think when you think about your leadership as detailed as you think about your offensive game plan, your defensive game plan, you're giving yourself a huge advantage that most people aren't doing. And so when situations are presenting themselves, coaches are losing games in the most crucial times of the year because they haven't prepared their team for a tough situation because they didn't want to address it, but they didn't know enough to address it at the time. We're trying to be really good when these situations present themselves at being able to say, well, we knew this was going to happen. And when we learned about this in 5 dysfunctions of a team, or we learned about this in Tuesdays with Maury, and being able to reference that in a nice, calm way, it just builds such a great camaraderie within our team.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear that. And maybe put your thinking hat on in terms of a high school coach and just think about them adapting this right now. Do you have any thoughts on maybe some things that might have to be changed or might have to be emphasized more? Some different things for a high school coach that's adapting your idea.
I think it's even better for a high school coach. I played on a state championship high school team, and I think the key to that, we had a great team, a great high school coach, but our JV coach was a history teacher, AP history teacher. And he really did a lot of this with us. I don't know if he had it exactly organized like this, but every day we came to practice, he always had something more to give us. And, from that team, I played college basketball, and then he had probably 4 or 5 college football players. And I think that's pretty significant. And I think, the one thing you look at that we all had was we all played on that team together with a great leader when we were at an age where we were hungry to learn it. And so I think it's, for a high school coach, I think it's everything. I think it's so valuable. And, and I don't think you have to get as in depth in a high school setting, but I think you can give them some really strong notions and go and attack it. I think if you're a high school coach, you have to do this because they're just more in tune to learn. Like they want to make that JV basketball team, that varsity basketball team so badly, they're going to listen to anything you say. And they're really trying to figure that part out. And so I would adapt it slightly. I don't think you got to go as in depth. I think you'd have to look at the reading material and adjust the reading material. But I think you can bet that if you have the reading material, you have the videos, you do a small classroom setting with the guys once a week, once every 2 weeks, they're going to be really locked into that. And they're going to really enjoy that. And I think it's going to really increase their learning. And I think it'll increase their ability in that sport and other sports because they're getting a foundation at the most critical time for learning. We're at the Boston Celtics thing learning about how people learn. That's one of the most critical times for them. So they're going to be able to take that, remember it, and then go out and put it to action.
Coach, this has been tremendous. Just great knowledge, great understanding of this process that you go through in terms of enhancing your players through this leadership process. And I just can't thank you enough for spending some time and sharing this with us.
Yeah, I appreciate everything you do. I really enjoy listening to your podcast. You have great guests on there, very detailed. You do an unbelievable job of asking like great questions. And, it's a pleasure to get on here with you, man. And I hope we get a chance to do it down the road. But I'm just really appreciative of you and sharing the knowledge of the game, man. It's been really great, man. I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you, Coach. And I'm happy we've added you to the legacy of the podcast now.
it's good to be a part of it. And, I think the goal of legacy is always something better than how you found it. And hopefully I was able to do that today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for listening. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and to give the Basketball Podcast and this week's guest a shout out on social media to show your support for us sharing the game. And to stay up to date on all things Basketball Immersion, subscribe to our newsletter at basketballimmersion.com/newsletter.